The galaxy had forgotten humanity. For 1,000 years, the name Terran meant nothing. Just a whisper in ancient archives, a rumor traded between long-lived alien historians who spoke of a race that burned itself to ash before ever reaching the stars. The ruins of their colonies, blackened moons and silent derelicts, were studied like the bones of some extinct beast. The other species looked at them and nodded to themselves, satisfied that such creatures were gone forever. The galaxy moved on. Empires rose, alliances fell, and wars were fought over star systems whose names no one could pronounce. And in the cold corners of the void, humanity's ghosts slept, machines sealed behind vaults of dark metal, forgotten by time, untouched by alien hands. Until the Andari Dominion found one. It began with a mining crew. The world of Epsilon Eridani IV was a dead, colorless place. A world of iron dust and frozen storms where even light seemed tired. But beneath its crust, the scanners found something metallic, dense, and ancient. It didn't match any known design in the Dominion's records. The lead researcher, an Andari named Kelthar Voon, stood before the buried object with trembling hands. He was not a soldier, but even he felt the weight of it. The structure was vast, a perfect hemisphere of black alloy buried deep in the rock. No seams, no entrances, no signs of life. "It's dead tech," said one of his assistants, tapping the scanner. "Probably pre-expansion era, abandoned before the Dominion was even born." But Kelthar shook his head. "No, this is something else. Look at the alloy composition, it's self-healing. No corrosion, no decay. Whatever this is, it's still active." They didn't believe him. For 3 days, they tried every tool, every plasma cutter, every molecular drill. Nothing left a mark. Then someone suggested explosives. Kelthar hesitated. He looked at the black surface one last time. It almost seemed to watch him. But curiosity, pride, and the thrill of discovery won. He gave the order. The charges went off. The ground split open. And the world screamed. It began as a vibration, low, deep, almost like the heartbeat of a planet. Then came the light, sharp and white, spilling from the fractures in the vault. The mining site erupted with electromagnetic bursts, frying every scanner, every drone, every ship within orbit. The Andari technicians panicked. Kelthar shouted for a retreat, but it was too late. The vault split open like the shell of an egg, and from the darkness within came sound, an impossible, ancient sound that echoed across every channel and frequency in the system. "Sol Protocol, RESTIVATD." 3 words, that was all. But those words carried power older than the Andari Dominion itself. The stars themselves seemed to pause. Across the Perseus arm, long-dead systems stirred. In the silent void above a shattered moon, a derelict warship began to glow. The ISS Retribution, its hull blackened by centuries of dust, powered up for the first time in a millennium. Inside its heart, an artificial intelligence opened its eyes. "Signal confirmed," it said. "Origin, Sol Network, status, humanity endures." In the asteroid belts of Proxima Centauri, buried under layers of iron and rock, dormant defense satellites flickered to life. Automated turrets swiveled, targeting systems aligned. Sol Protocol, Priority 1. Every relic of old Earth, every forgotten ship and machine began to move. Somewhere in the void, an ancient orbital beacon blinked red for the first time in 1,000 years. Its transmission cut through the fabric of space, sending a message no alien could understand, but all could feel. Humanity had awakened. The Andari didn't know what they had done. Within hours, their ships lost all long-range communication. The Dominion's central AI detected strange signals pulsing from deep space, patterns, codes, languages no one could translate. Entire sectors went dark, as if swallowed by shadow. At first, they thought it was an attack. Then the scouts came back. Or rather, they didn't. The first Andari patrol to investigate the beacon vanished without a trace. Their last transmission lasted 2 seconds. Static, then the image of something vast moving through the black, something shaped like a ship, but larger than any built by living hands. The Second Fleet met the same fate. The few fragments of footage recovered showed warships of an unknown origin, massive, angular, silent. They moved like predators, gliding through the void with terrible grace. Their hulls were covered in names etched in a language the Andari couldn't read. But one word appeared again and again: burned into steel, scratched by hand, carved into the very metal as if it mattered more than life itself. Humanity. Kelthar Voon never saw the sun rise again. On the night before the storm, he stood at the edge of the excavation pit, watching the vault pulse faintly like a beating heart. His instruments had melted hours ago. The air felt heavy, charged with invisible power. He whispered into his recorder. "We thought they were gone. We thought the Terrans were myths, but this is no myth. This is a warning." He looked up, and for a moment he thought he saw faces in the light. Faces that looked almost like his, but harder, colder, eyes burning like stars. Then the ground split open again, and everything vanished in a blinding flash. When the Andari Dominion sent a fleet to investigate, they found nothing but glassed plains and a crater where the vault had been. No bodies, no ships, no evidence that Kelthar's team ever existed. But orbiting above the dead world, something waited. A ship, black as the void, silent as a grave. Its engines were not of Andari design. Its signal was unmistakable. "This is the ISS Retribution, Terran Ascendancy. The Sol Protocol is active. Stand by for retribution." Across the galaxy, alien empires stirred uneasily. The Council of Stars gathered in emergency session, their vast chambers filled with anxious delegates. Old species, powerful and ancient, argued in panic. "They can't be real," hissed the Kraith representative. "Humanity is extinct, everyone knows that." "Then who destroyed the Andari fleets?" another replied. "Who sent those signals?" The room fell silent. Somewhere in the void, an ancient voice whispered again, carried by every comm channel, every subspace relay, every corner of the known galaxy. "Humanity endures." That night, under the silver glow of alien suns, the galaxy remembered fear. For the first time in 1,000 years, the stars trembled, not because of war or politics or power, but because of memory. Because somewhere out there in the cold dark, something long forgotten had risen again. The humans had slept. Now they were awake. And the universe would never forget them again. The first Andari distress calls came only as whispers, broken fragments of static carried across the void. Then they stopped altogether. What remained was silence. The kind of silence that eats at the edges of sanity. The kind of silence that means something is watching you just beyond the stars. In that silence, something moved. The ISS Retribution drifted through the ruins of the Andari fleet like a ghost through a graveyard. Once, she had been the pride of humanity's navy, a warship so powerful it could level a continent. Now, after 1,000 years of slumber, her black hull gleamed again under the light of a distant sun. Inside her steel heart, systems hummed to life one by one. The corridors filled with light. Automated repair drones crawled along the decks, welding, sealing, rebuilding. At the center of the ship, the main AI core glowed with a faint red light. It spoke softly to itself, its voice almost human. Status power restored, weapons online, shields calibrated. Directive: protect humanity, rebuild the fleet, retaliate. Across the void, hundreds of other Terran warships woke as well. Their names appeared on long-dead star maps like ancient ghosts returning from legend. Carthage, Nemesis, Prometheus, Yorktown, Odyssey. Ships that should have been rust and dust now cut through the black like blades reborn. Each ship carried the same message, the same heartbeat. Humanity endures. When the next Andari reconnaissance fleet arrived in the Epsilon Eridani system, they found nothing but ash. The mining colony was gone. The ground itself had melted into smooth glass. The commander of the fleet, Admiral Sarth, tried to keep his voice steady as he spoke to his crew. "Activate scanners. Find me anything that still breathes." His officers obeyed, but their hands trembled. The sensors showed strange readings, massive energy signatures in deep orbit, flickering in and out of space. "Could be cloaked ships," someone whispered. Before Sarth could answer, the darkness outside shifted. A shape appeared against the stars. It was huge, black metal, sharp angles, and cold light running across its surface. It moved with silent grace, like a predator gliding through water. "Unidentified vessel," Sarth called into the comms, voice cracking slightly. "This is Admiral Sarth of the Andari Dominion. Identify yourself." There was no reply. The shape grew larger, Then another appeared beside it, then 10 more. The Andari ships powered up their weapons in panic. But before they could fire, a voice came across every channel, deep and clear, vibrating through their bones. "This is the Terran ascendancy. You are trespassing on human ground. Withdraw." No one on the Andari bridge understood the language, but they felt its meaning in their very blood. Then the Terrans fired. It was not a battle, it was an execution. Bright lines of plasma lanced through the void, moving faster than light. The Andari fleet, hundreds of ships strong, vanished in seconds. The Retribution's railguns punched through cruisers as if they were paper. The explosion of each ship was like a dying star. Those few who tried to flee found the stars shifting around them. The Terran ships were not just fast, they bent space itself. Every escape vector folded back toward the battlefield. Sarth's final act was to send a message before his ship was consumed. His voice was hoarse, his eyes wide with terror. "They're not gone, they were never gone. The humans are back." The message never reached the Dominion, but others did. Terran signals began spreading across subspace, old codes, encrypted in ways no alien technology could decipher. In some places, abandoned human satellites began to transmit again, their antennas turning toward Sol, the birthplace of the species that time had tried to erase. And as the old network came alive, the message spread to every corner of the galaxy. "Sol Protocol active." Far away in the galactic capital of Verath Prime, the Council of Stars convened. Their chamber, an enormous hall of crystal and silver, was filled with the leaders of dozens of civilizations. The air was thick with fear. "They destroyed the entire Andari defense grid," a reptilian counselor hissed. 30,000 ships, gone." "That's impossible," said another, a pale, insected diplomat. "Humans were pre-FTL barbarians, they had nukes, not fleets." The chamber erupted in argument. Some called for calm, others for war. Then the hollow screens flickered. Every light dimmed. A transmission forced its way through every encrypted line, every barrier, every firewall. The screen showed a man, or something that looked like a man. His face was pale, his uniform black. His eyes burned with a faint golden light. His voice was calm, but beneath it was something ancient and terrible. "To all species of the Orion Arm," he said, "we are the children of Earth. You called us extinct. You were wrong." He paused, the silence stretched until it hurt. "We do not seek conquest. We do not seek war. But know this, if you dig in our graves again, if you disturb what we have left behind, we will bring the wrath of 1,000 years upon you. We are humanity, and we remember." The feed ended. No one spoke. The chamber remained in stunned silence, every delegate frozen in place. For the first time in generations, the Council of Stars felt something they had forgotten: fear. In the black void beyond the galactic rim, the Terran ascendancy gathered its fleet. Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of the ISS Retribution, watching as the ships formed ranks around him. His face was calm, carved from stone, his eyes fixed on the holographic map of known space. "Status report," he said quietly. "Fleet ready, 27 dreadnoughts, 3 Titan-class carriers, hundreds of cruisers, all systems online." Voss nodded slowly. He touched the hologram of Sol, the ancient birthplace of his people. For centuries, the homeworld had been silent, hidden, sealed behind the quarantine of the dead. But now it called to them again. "After 1,000 years," Voss murmured, "Earth still waits for her children." He turned toward the void and raised his hand. "Signal the fleet, we move for Sol." Behind him, the AI voice of the ship whispered softly, "Admiral, the galaxy will not understand." Voss smiled a hard, quiet smile. "They don't need to, they only need to remember." Outside, the stars seemed to tremble as the Terran fleet activated its drives. The black ships vanished into the folds of space, leaving behind only echoes. But those echoes carried far, too far. They reached the outer colonies of the Dominion. They reached the listening stations of the Council. They reached every world that had once mocked humanity, dismissed them as savages, and erased them from history. Now the message was clear. Humanity is no myth. Humanity endures. And humanity is coming home. In the deep dark between galaxies, As the Retribution tore through hyperspace, Admiral Voss closed his eyes. He remembered the stories passed down through generations, the wars that broke the stars, the fall of the old empire, the silence that followed. He remembered the promise written into every Terran machine. We are dust, but we rise. And now, as humanity's lost armadas gathered once more, he whispered the words that would soon echo across the stars. From dust to destiny, so begins the return. The fleet moved on, silent and unstoppable, like the judgment of gods. And the galaxy, once proud and fearless, waited in dread. The stars burned quietly as the Terran ascendancy returned to life. For 1,000 years, humanity had been a ghost story whispered between alien scholars and scavengers. But now, the ghosts had come back, and they came bearing fire. Admiral Elias Voss stood on the bridge of the ISS Retribution, his reflection caught in the reinforced glass. Before him, the fleet gathered in silent formation, hundreds of warships, sleek and dark, weapons glowing faintly like veins of light through a living thing. Each ship bore a name that carried the weight of history: Carthage, Sparta, Hiroshima, Thermopylae, Tiananmen, Gettysburg. Words that no alien could pronounce, but every human remembered. Voss's jaw tightened. "It's time," he said. Across the galaxy, humanity's descendants awoke from their long exile. Hidden deep beyond the Perseus frontier, the colonies of the Terran ascendancy had flourished in secret, far from the wars and politics of the galaxy that once mocked them. Generations had built and rebuilt, shaping a civilization of iron discipline and unyielding purpose. Their soldiers were no longer the fragile beings who once walked Earth's surface. Genetic enhancement, neural binding, and centuries of warfare had turned them into something more, something inevitable. And now, their leaders answered the ancient call. From the icy bastions of New Titan, from the fortress worlds of Valkyrian and Helios Prime, the fleets began to move. Everywhere, the same orders echoed through the void. Return to Sol, reclaim what is ours. It began with the Andari Dominion. They had been the first to disturb the Terran relics. They had woken the sleeping beasts beneath the dust of forgotten worlds. Now they would pay the price. The Retribution's fleet dropped out of warp above the Andari homeworld. The sight filled the skies, an ocean of black ships stretching from horizon to horizon. No warnings were given. No demands were made. The Terrans simply opened fire. The first orbital defense platforms vanished under kinetic barrages, each impact bright enough to light the night side of the planet. The atmosphere burned, turning the upper layers into storms of plasma and debris. Andari fleets scrambled from their shipyards, thousands of vessels rising to meet the invaders. But the moment their sensors locked on, the Terran fleet disappeared. They reappeared inside the Andari formation. What followed was chaos, an execution written in light. Terran dreadnoughts fired at point-blank range, cutting through the enemy lines like blades through water. Fighters dove through clouds of wreckage, their trails leaving streaks of fire across the sky. Within minutes, the Dominion's greatest fleet, the pride of their empire, was nothing but drifting wreckage. The Andari capital's planetary shield flickered as rail slugs the size of skyscrapers rained from orbit. Cities vanished in firestorms. Mountain ranges cracked under the shockwaves. Admiral Voss stood silently as the Andari homeworld burned. His second-in-command, Commander Rhea Calder, stepped forward, her face pale under the red light of the tactical screens. "They're surrendering," she said softly. Voss didn't answer right away. His eyes lingered on the planet, a glowing wound beneath them. "Let them," he said finally. "They disturbed our graves. Let them remember what they found there." When the transmission reached the Galactic Council, it caused an uproar. Footage of the Andari's destruction spread like wildfire. The recordings showed the Terran ships, sleek, silent, unstoppable, tearing through the Dominion's defenses with precision no one had ever seen before. Entire civilizations panicked. Some sent ambassadors begging for contact. Others began arming their fleets. But the Council of Stars, proud and ancient, could not accept the truth. "They are only one species," declared Chancellor Vurian of the Kraith Empire. "We are dozens. We will crush them as we would a pest." The chamber filled with uneasy murmurs. A single holographic transmission interrupted the meeting. The figure was human, tall, dark-uniformed, eyes like burning gold. "This is Admiral Voss of the Terran Ascendancy," the voice said. "Your empires have grown fat on the bones of the dead. You took our ruins, our relics, our history. You built your strength on what you stole from us." The delegates shifted nervously as the hologram leaned closer. "We are not your prey, we are not your myth. We are the fire you tried to forget. And we have returned." The transmission ended. In the silence that followed, no one dared speak. Weeks passed. Across the Orion arm, strange signals appeared, encoded transmissions in forgotten human languages. Abandoned human stations began to hum again, their beacons pulsing faintly like the heartbeat of something vast and old. Alien ships that ventured too close vanished without a trace. In the colonies nearest to Terran space, rumors spread. People spoke of black ships seen drifting in the night, silent and cold, with human markings carved into their hulls. They whispered of voices over comms, speaking ancient Earth languages, promising retribution for those who trespassed. The galaxy began to realize what it had done. Humanity had not died, humanity had waited. On board the ISS Retribution, Admiral Voss stood before a massive window, watching the stars slide past as the fleet approached Sol. Commander Calder approached quietly. "Sir," she said, "the old system's readings are unstable. There's radiation, wreckage the planet Earth may not have survived." Voss nodded slowly, eyes distant. "It doesn't matter." "Sir." "What matters," he said softly, "is that they will remember her." He turned away, hands clasped behind his back. "The galaxy forgot what it means to fear. We will remind them." As the Terran fleet neared Sol, long-dead satellites came to life. The ancient defense grid recognized the signal, human encryption, unchanged for centuries. "Welcome home," said a voice through the static, ancient and broken but unmistakably human. The fleet entered orbit. Where once blue oceans and green lands had thrived, Earth now lay silent. The surface was scorched, cities long turned to dust. But above it, hundreds of ancient defense platforms still floated, blackened, rusted, but awake. One by one, they turned toward the returning ships. Admiral Voss stared down at the world that had birthed them all. His voice broke just slightly. "We failed her once, never again." He raised his hand. "Activate Sol Command. Begin rearmament protocols." The stars above Earth flared to life as humanity's old war machines roared awake, lighting the void like a storm reborn. The galaxy watched in terror as transmissions spread across every known channel. "From Sol we rise. Humanity endures. The Ascendancy claims the stars." In the halls of the Alien Council, someone whispered what everyone already feared. "We should have left them buried." The lost sons had returned to their homeworld. And the universe, for the first time in an age, understood what the word Terran truly meant. Fire, irons, and vengeance that never dies. The sky above Andar Prime was red with fire. The Terran fleet had arrived. It came without warning, without message or mercy, hundreds of black warships sliding from the folds of hyperspace like shadows given form. Their engines were silent. Their weapons glowed white-hot. From orbit, they looked like a storm, a perfect, coordinated storm of steel and vengeance. For a moment, the people of Andar simply stared at the heavens, wondering if they were dreaming. Then the bombardment began. The first strike hit the upper atmosphere, a beam of light so bright it turned night to day. Then another, then 10. In seconds, the sky was alive with fire. Plasma bolts burned through the air, tearing through defense grids and vaporizing entire cities. Orbital shields, the pride of the Andari Dominion, collapsed like paper before the storm. Admiral Voss watched from the bridge of the ISS Retribution as the enemy's planetary defense lines fell one by one. "Report," he said, his voice calm, almost cold. "Shields broken, ground batteries offline. Enemy fleet attempting to regroup behind the second moon," said Commander Rhea Calder. Voss nodded slowly. "Intercept, no survivors." The Andari fleet was vast, tens of thousands of ships, but numbers meant nothing now. The Retribution led the charge, flanked by the ISS Carthage and ISS Nemesis. The void lit up with the fury of gods. Terran railguns hurled tungsten slugs at near-light speed, cutting through ships like glass. Drones swarmed in synchronized patterns, each one armed with micro-fusion warheads. Andari cruisers fired back, their plasma bolts scattering harmlessly across Terran shields. For every Terran ship they struck, 10 of theirs were erased from existence. It wasn't a battle, it was judgment. From the surface, survivors could only watch the sky bleed. A young Andari soldier named Leth Vuren stumbled through the ruins of his city. Above him, the stars flickered with flashes of white and red. His world was ending. He saw something streak across the horizon, a black drop pod screaming down through the smoke. It struck the ground not far away, leaving a crater. He crawled toward it, heart pounding, desperate to see what kind of monster had come for them. The pod hissed open, steam rolled out. And from within stepped a figure in dark armor, its visor glowing like molten gold. Human, but not human as the old records had shown. This one was taller, stronger, wrapped in metal and purpose. The armor bore no symbols, only a single word carved into the breastplate, Terra. The soldier raised his rifle, trembling. "Stay back." The armored human didn't answer. It only tilted its head slightly, as if studying him. Then, in a deep, calm voice that cut through the chaos, "You should have left us buried." A flash of light, and everything went silent. In orbit, the Andari command fleet burned. Admiral Sura Kelrin, Supreme Commander of the Dominion Navy, watched as her ships fell apart one after another. She had never known fear before this moment. Her people had conquered 10 systems, defeated entire races. But now she felt it, the cold, primal dread that had haunted the stars long ago. "Send a message," she ordered, her voice shook, "to the Terran fleet." The comms officer hesitated. "Admiral, their signal is jamming every frequency." "Try," she screamed. Static filled the air, then cleared. A face appeared on the hollow screen, human, hard, unblinking. Admiral Voss. Kelrin swallowed her pride. "We surrender," she said. "You've made your point, we'll leave your systems, just stop this." Voss stared at her for a long moment. His voice, when it came, was quiet. "You woke our dead, you desecrated our graves. Do you think mercy survives where humanity was buried?" Kelrin's lips trembled. "You can't." "I can," Voss said, "and I will." He turned to his crew. "Fire." The connection cut. Seconds later, the Andari flagship was torn apart by a beam of light so bright it left an afterimage in the eyes of every survivor who dared to look. The battle lasted less than an hour. When it ended, the Andari homeworld was a scarred wasteland. Oceans boiled. Continents split apart. The Terran fleet remained above the ruins, silent. No celebration. No cheers, only the hum of machines fulfilling an ancient promise. Commander Calder stood beside Voss on the bridge. "It's done," she said quietly. Voss didn't look away from the burning planet. "No," he said, "it's begun." News of the destruction spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every government, every empire, every species saw the images. The Black Fleet, the burning world, the precision and fury of the Terran assault. The Council of Stars met in emergency session. Holofeeds showed hundreds of delegates shouting over one another. "They've destroyed an entire civilization. This is extinction-level warfare. They'll come for us next." Only one spoke calmly, the Kraith ambassador, his scaled hands folded. "No," he said, "they won't come for us, not yet, they'll wait. They want us to see, to understand." He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. "This is their message. Humanity remembers." Meanwhile, on the ISS Retribution, Voss stood alone in his quarters. The holographic projection of Earth shimmered before him, a dead world wrapped in dust and silence. He reached out, his fingers brushing through the light. Once humanity had been weak, divided, forgotten, but not anymore. Now they were united in purpose. Voss closed his eyes. In his mind, he could still hear the old anthem, an echo from a time when Earth was alive, when humans still believed in hope instead of vengeance. "From dust," he whispered, "we rise." On the outskirts of the Andari system, a single ship fled the wreckage, a small civilian vessel carrying a handful of survivors. One of them, a young child, looked out the viewport at the Black Fleet drifting above their dead world. "Who are they?" she asked softly. Her father held her close, voice shaking. "The Terrans," he said, "the humans." The girl's eyes were wide, reflecting the glow of the burning planet. "Will they come for us too?" He didn't answer, but far above them, the retribution sensors locked onto their escaping ship. Voss saw the signal on his console. His hand hovered over the command to fire. Then he paused. He deactivated the target. "Let them go," he said quietly. Commander Calder turned to him in surprise. "Sir." He looked out at the distant stars. "Let them remember what they saw. Fear spreads faster than death." And as the Terran fleet turned away from the smoldering world, the galaxy trembled. For the first time in millennia, the word human carried meaning again. It meant power. It meant vengeance. It meant destiny. The Council of Stars met in silence. For once, the Grand Chamber on Verath Prime, a place where voices usually thundered with pride and arrogance, was still. The destruction of the Andari Dominion hung over them like smoke. The hollow screens flickered, showing images of the ruins. Cities turned to glass, oceans boiling, a planet stripped bare. The Terran fleet had done in 1 hour what entire coalitions had failed to do in centuries. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, the Chancellor, a tall crystalline being named Vurian, broke the silence. His voice was sharp, brittle. "An act of barbarism," he said. "Humanity has proven what we always believed: they are savages, machines wearing flesh." A dozen others murmured in agreement, but beneath their words there was fear. Fear of the black ships that had appeared from the shadows. Fear of a species that had been forgotten and had come back stronger than any of them could imagine. On the lower tier of the chamber, Ambassador Sira Thane, one of the few who had studied Terran history, rose slowly. Her skin shimmered with faint light, a trait of her people, the Veil. Her voice was calm, but there was weight in it. "Savages," she repeated softly. "No, survivors." She turned her eyes to the others. "They were destroyed once. You all remember the records, wars that burned their own world, nations that tore themselves apart. But they rebuilt, they learned, they endured." Vurian slammed his crystalline hand on the table. "They exterminated the Andari." Sira met his glare. "So did we once, long ago. We've all done worse. The only difference is that the humans don't pretend to be civilized when they fight." A murmur swept the chamber. Another voice, cold and metallic, came from a holographic projector. High Admiral Zorath of the Dravix Empire, speaking from orbit. "Enough talk. Words won't stop them. They destroyed a Dominion world in a single strike. If we don't act now, they'll come for us next. I propose we unite our fleets and crush this Terran ascendancy before it spreads." The vote passed before the hour was over. For the first time in galactic history, the great powers united under one banner, the coalition of the Starborn. Over 100,000 ships, 10 species, billions of soldiers. It was the largest fleet ever assembled. They believed it would be enough. On the other side of the galaxy, the Terran ascendancy watched and waited. Admiral Elias Voss stood on the observation deck of the ISS Retribution, staring into the swirling colors of hyperspace. The Council's declaration had already reached them, a call to arms filled with arrogance and pride. He smiled faintly. "So the galaxy finally remembers us." Commander Rhea Calder stepped beside him. "They're mobilizing everything they have," she said. "It's a full-scale crusade." "Good," Voss said quietly. "Then we won't have to hunt them, they'll come to us." At the edge of known space, near the red giant of Vornak's Reach, the two armadas met. The coalition fleet stretched across the void like a living wall of light, an unbroken sea of ships, carriers, dreadnoughts, and cruisers. Their weapons glowed with power. Their commanders believed they were unstoppable. Opposite them, the Terran fleet floated in perfect silence. No signals, no formations, just shadows drifting in the dark as if waiting for judgment. At the center of the human formation was the ISS Retribution, its black hull reflecting the light of the enemy's weapons. Commander Calder stood at her console, scanning the vast formation. "They outnumber us 20 to 1, she said. Voss didn't move. "Numbers don't win wars, will does." The first shot came from the coalition. A volley of plasma torpedoes streaked through the void, painting lines of light across the darkness. They struck where the Terran ships had been moments ago, but those ships weren't there anymore. The Terrans had vanished. "Where did they go?" shouted a Dravix commander on the Coalition's channel. "They." He didn't finish. The Terran fleet reappeared inside their lines. The black ships moved with terrifying precision, their warp drives flickering in short bursts that made them seem to blink between stars. Railguns fired point-blank. Nuclear lances tore through carriers. The first wave of the Coalition was gone in seconds. The battle became chaos. Everywhere the humans were there, behind, above, below. Their ships fought like predators, cutting through formations, striking from angles no one thought possible. Terran commandos boarded enemy flagships through teleport strikes, moving through corridors like shadows, their armor burning white in the dark. The Coalition tried to regroup, but the Terrans anticipated every move, every retreat, every line of defense. At the heart of it all, the Retribution unleashed its main weapon, a singularity cannon built from relic tech of the old Empire. The shot tore open space itself. Half the Coalition fleet vanished in the blast, sucked into the void. In the chaos, Admiral Zorath sent a desperate transmission. "All ships regroup, we can still." His words were cut off as a Terran dreadnought rammed his flagship, detonating its antimatter core. The explosion lit up the stars like a sunrise. When the light faded, only silence remained. The Coalition fleet, 100,000 ships strong, was gone. All that was left was wreckage. Hours later, the surviving Terran ships drifted among the debris. The void was filled with glowing fragments, metal, broken hulls, frozen bodies. Commander Calder stared at the destruction. "It's over," she said. "We've broken them." Voss stood beside her, silent for a long time. Then he said, "No, we've reminded them." He turned toward the stars, his voice low and steady. "Now they know what happens when they challenge us." On Verath Prime, the Council received the final transmission. A single image filled the chamber, the shattered remains of the Coalition fleet floating above the burning planet of Vornak. Then the transmission shifted, showing Admiral Voss himself. His expression was calm, his eyes like molten steel. "We asked for peace, you answered with war. You called us extinct, you called us myth. Now you have seen the truth." He paused, letting the silence stretch. "We are humanity. We do not forgive. We do not forget." The feed ended. No one in the chamber spoke. Some trembled, some wept. Others simply sat in stunned silence, realizing what had just happened. The Kraith ambassador whispered, almost to himself. "We thought we could break them. We thought we were gods." He looked up at the shattered holomap of the galaxy. "We were wronged." That night, across 1,000 worlds, the story spread. Children whispered it in fear. Soldiers spoke it in awe. Commanders in hidden bunkers stared at the stars, wondering if the humans were already there, watching. No empire slept easily. And as the Terran ascendancy rebuilt its strength above the ashes of its enemies, one truth echoed across the stars. Humanity endures. The galaxy would never forget it again. The void above Vornak Prime was filled with ghosts. The wreckage of the Coalition's first strike still drifted across the stars, twisted metal, shattered hulls, the remains of 100 proud empires that had dared to challenge humanity. The region was now called the Black Sea, a graveyard that stretched across light years. No one dared approach it. No one except the humans. The Terran ascendancy had turned the Black Sea into a fortress. The wreckage of alien ships was gathered, melted, reforged into vast orbital rings and weapons platforms. From the remains of the fallen, humanity built their walls. Admiral Elias Voss stood on the command deck of the ISS Retribution, looking down upon the dark expanse. His reflection flickered in the glass, eyes like molten iron. Below him, the fleet waited, hundreds of warships, every hull marked with names older than the galaxy's empires. Sparta, Jerusalem, Midway, Yamato, Marathon. Each one a reminder. "Status?" he asked. Commander Rhea Calder turned from her console. "The Coalition is moving, 6 fleets converging from multiple sectors. We estimate over 1 million ships." Voss smiled faintly. "Good, they've learned nothing." The Council had rebuilt what they could. Pride would not let them surrender. Every surviving empire poured its resources into one last crusade. The Grand Armada, a fleet so vast it blotted out the stars. They swore this would be the end of humanity once and for all. The Armada's flagship, the Kraith Sovereign, led the formation. Within its halls, the alien admirals argued, terrified and desperate. Their technology defies logic, hissed the insectoid High Admiral Zethar. They warp space itself, they make gravity obey. Chancellor Vurian, his crystal form glimmering with frustration, replied sharply, "Then we crush them with numbers. They are still flesh. They still bleed." The Kraith bared his fangs, "Then pray they still can." In the depths of the Black Sea, humanity waited in silence. The enemy fleets appeared on sensors, waves upon waves of ships glowing like a swarm of suns. "Multiple formations entering range," Calder said. "They're charging weapons." Voss gave a single nod. "Activate the wall." The void lit up. From the remains of the old battles, human engineers had created something the galaxy had never seen before, the Aegis Array. A network of graviton fields and magnetic barriers spanning hundreds of kilometers, powered by the cores of fallen dreadnoughts. When the Coalition opened fire, their weapons met the wall. Beams of light, plasma, and antimatter struck and vanished into nothing. Then the Terrans struck back. The Retribution's railguns fired in synchronized rhythm. Each slug, compressed tungsten wrapped in magnetic plasma, punched through multiple enemy cruisers before detonating. Human drones, sleek and black, dove into the fray, each carrying enough charge to vaporize a destroyer. Every Terran vessel fought like an extension of the same will, flawless, merciless, alive. Commander Calder's voice cut through the chaos. "Sector 9, enemy breach." "Send the Nemesis group," Voss replied. Moments later, 3 Titan-class dreadnoughts warped into the fray. The ISS Nemesis led them, its hull glowing red-hot as it tore through space. It fired once. The shockwave erased an entire enemy battle group. But the Coalition had learned too. From the depths of their fleet, they unleashed their final weapon, an experimental black hole generator, the Eclipse Core. A sphere of darkness bloomed at the center of the battlefield, devouring everything around it. Ships twisted and broke apart, light itself bending into the hungry void. Calder gripped her console. "Admiral, it's collapsing the field we can't hold." Voss's expression didn't change. "Then we buy time." He turned to his officers. "Signal the ISS Nemesis, prepare the core detonation." Calder's eyes widened. "Sir, that ship will be destroyed." "I know." He looked through the glass one last time, at the swirling storm of light and death. "They wanted to erase us. Let them see what humanity does when faced with the impossible." The Nemesis dove into the gravity well, engines burning blue-white. Inside, her captain, Commodore Ash Vale, sat in silence. His ship trembled, hull groaning under the pressure of the forming singularity. He opened a channel to the fleet. His voice was calm. "To all Terran vessels, tell Earth we remember." Then he triggered the detonation. The singularity inside the Eclipse Core collided with the Nemesis's antimatter payload. The explosion tore through space itself. For a moment, the universe went silent. Then came light, blinding, pure, endless light. When it faded, the black hole was gone. And so was half the enemy armada. The battlefield was a graveyard again. The Coalition, broken and scattered, began to retreat. Panic spread through their ranks. Voss gave no order to chase them. His voice was cold. "Let them run. Fear will carry our message farther than we ever could." Back on the Retribution, silence filled the bridge. The crew stood still, staring at the space where the Nemesis had vanished. Commander Calder whispered, "He didn't have to die." Voss's eyes hardened. "Every human who ever lived died for this, for our right to rise again." Ash Vale knew that. He turned toward the fleet view. "And now so will the stars." Hours later, the final transmission from the battle spread through the galaxy. Every signal relay, every broadcast tower, every encrypted network received the same message. A single image, the Terran fleet standing victorious over the shattered armada. And beneath it, one line of text in the ancient language of Earth. "From dust to destiny." On Vereth Prime, the Council of Stars gathered one last time. The chamber that had once echoed with arrogance now trembled with despair. "They've broken the fleets," whispered a delegate. "The war is lost." Chancellor Vurian stood slowly, his once bright form dimmed to gray. "No," he said, "the galaxy is lost." He looked up at the holomap of the stars. Whole sectors now glowed red with Terran signals. The humans don't conquer like we do, they consume. They become the void they came from. As the council fell into silence, somewhere beyond the edge of known space, Admiral Voss stood alone in his quarters. He stared at an old Earth relic, a cracked coin, weathered and ancient. One side read E pluribus unum. Out of many, one. He closed his fist around it. Out of ashes, he murmured, we rise. Outside, the Terran fleet drifted through the remains of its enemies, silent and eternal. The stars around them dimmed, as if bowing their light. Humanity had not just survived. It had ascended. The war was over. The galaxy was quiet. Above the dead world of Vornak Prime, the last of the enemy fleets drifted in silence, wreckage glinting faintly in the light of a dying sun. The stars that had once burned with fury now looked cold and distant, as if watching something greater than themselves. Humanity had won. And in winning, they had changed everything. The Terran ascendancy spread like a tide. World after world, those that had once mocked the name of Earth now bowed to it. Some surrendered willingly, others out of fear. No empire dared stand in their way. The fleets of the ascendancy became the new constellations, their shadows passing across alien skies as silent reminders of what power truly meant. Admiral Elias Voss stood in the Grand Hall of New Sol Command, the new capital built on Mars. The air shimmered with the heat of forges and the hum of machinery. Outside, enormous construction rings surrounded the planet, building the next generation of ships, vaster, darker, stronger than before. He looked out through the glass, seeing Earth in the distance, a scarred but living world, slowly healing beneath its restored atmosphere. It was no longer blue, but it was beautiful in its own way. Humanity had come home. Commander Rhea Calder entered the room quietly. She looked exhausted, her once sharp eyes soft with something like sorrow. "It's finished," she said. "The last council worlds have surrendered. The galaxy is ours." Voss didn't turn. "Ours," he repeated, as if testing the word. "Strange, isn't it? 1,000 years of silence, and now the stars kneel again." She hesitated. Do they kneel in peace or in fear? Voss's reflection flickered in the glass. What's the difference? Far beyond Mars, on worlds scattered across the Orion Arm, the survivors of the fallen empires whispered the same stories. They spoke of black ships that came without warning, of soldiers who never spoke, of eyes that glowed like suns behind cold helmets. Children grew up hearing the same warning. Do not speak the name of Earth in vain. The Terrans were no longer myth, they were law. And yet, even among humans, there was unease. Because power had cost them something, themselves. Admiral Voss walked through the memorial chamber beneath Sol Command. It was vast and quiet, its walls lined with holographic names, every ship and soldier that had been lost since the awakening of the Sol Protocol. The light shimmered faintly, reflecting off his face. In the center stood a single monument, a broken piece of metal engraved with one word. Nemesis. He knelt before it, head bowed. They called us monsters, he said softly. Maybe they were right. Later that night, he stood before the High Council of Humanity, the first true ruling body since the fall of the old Earth Empire. The chamber was circular, the walls made of black stone mined from Lunar itself. Representatives from every colony stood in silence, as Voss took his place at the center. Admiral, said Chancellor Mara Vance, the eldest among them, the galaxy lies before us. The ascendancy rules from Sol to the Perseus Edge. What shall we do now? Voss looked up at her. His voice was calm, steady, filled with that quiet strength that had carried them this far. We rebuild, he said. We remember who we were before the darkness. And what if the others rise again? Another asked. Voss's eyes hardened. Then they'll remember what we are now. In the months that followed, the new order took shape. Human engineers rebuilt the shattered networks of the old galaxy, restoring trade and communication under Terran supervision. The remaining alien races were given a choice, serve or fade into history. Most chose to serve. The ISS Retribution became a symbol of the new age, her black hull gleaming as she patrolled the stars. The fleet no longer fought enemies, it enforced peace. A peace born from ashes. But not all humans celebrated. In hidden places, old tunnels beneath Mars, abandoned mining colonies near Titan, voices began to whisper. They spoke of what humanity had lost. Compassion, curiosity, the dream of reaching the stars not as conquerors, but as explorers. One rebel broadcast, quickly silenced, left behind a single phrase that spread like a ghost through the networks. We rose from dust to destiny, but at what cost? One evening, Voss returned to his quarters. The room was dim, lit only by the distant glow of the stars. He stood before the window, hands clasped behind his back. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to remember Earth as it once was. The sound of rain, the warmth of sunlight, the laughter of people who had no idea what destiny awaited them. He wondered if they would recognize what their descendants had become. The intercom chimed. "Admiral," came Calder's voice, "we're receiving new transmissions, dozens of worlds requesting admission to the Ascendancy." He stared at the stars for a long moment before answering. "Accept them," he said quietly, "and remember them." Weeks later, a new monument was unveiled on the surface of Earth. A single pillar of obsidian rose from the ruins of old New York. No flags, no symbols of conquest, just one inscription carved deep into the stone, in words from a language older than the stars. "We were dust, we became destiny. And we will be remembered." In the outer reaches of the galaxy, far beyond known space, a small Andari child looked up at the night sky. Her father pointed toward the faint light of Sol, distant but unmissable. "See that star?" he said. "That's where they came from, the humans." The child frowned. "Are they coming here?" The father hesitated. "Maybe, but if they do, we'll be ready." The child stared a little longer, her eyes wide with wonder. "Do you think they'll ever stop fighting?" He looked at the stars and his heart grew heavy. "I don't know," he whispered. "Maybe they can't." Back on Earth, Admiral Voss stood before the same pillar, alone. Wind swept through the empty ruins around him. He placed his hand against the cold stone and closed his eyes. For the first time since the war began, he allowed himself to feel something other than duty. Pride, sorrow, hope. "From dust," he said softly, "we rose." He looked up at the sky, where human ships streaked across the night like shooting stars. "Now," he whispered, "we must learn to live among the stars we've conquered." He turned away, the sound of distant thunder echoing in the wind, a reminder that even in peace, the storm of humanity never truly ended. And so the galaxy learned to live beneath Terran rule. Some worshipped them, some feared them, but all remembered them. Because from the ruins of extinction, humanity had built an empire of iron and fire. From silence, they had forged destiny. And as the centuries passed, every world, every species, every living soul in the galaxy carried the same truth in their hearts. Humanity does not fall. Humanity conquers. And the stars belong to them now.